Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Read Between Podcast, the improvised storytelling podcast where we take the internet's weirdest suggestions and turn them into weird, wacky, and crazy stories through the power of improv. I am one of your co-hosts, Evan.
And I'm one of your hosts, Lynn.
And we are back. We are back after our extended holiday hiatus, which has been a little over a month now.
It feels like more than a month.
Yeah, our last episode was posted November 26th. So,
wow.
So yeah, the Monday after Thanksgiving was our last episode. So
yeah, we fucked off and didn't really tell you guys, huh?
Yeah, well, we did put out that little thing a couple weeks ago, little blurb a couple weeks ago. So we want to thank you guys for sticking around and coming back and checking out our new episode. It's the new year. It's 2018. It'll be 2018 when this comes out. We're still technically in 2017 at this point when we're recording this. So yeah, we're hello from the past.
Hello from the past, looking into the future.
Yeah, 2017, the last little bit of it. Kind of a shitty year, if we think about it.
You know how the joke last year was that 2016 was a dumpster fire? Mm-hmm. I think this is just 2 dumpster fires.
No, I think this is a dumpster fire that got thrown off into a cliff and then exploded and created multiple dumpster fires from it.
What, like the dumpster fire just broke off and created tiny dumpsters that were on fire?
Yes.
That's an interesting concept.
Yeah, it kind of, the little dumpster fires kind of permeated into all facets of society.
All right, well, I mean, that's one way to think of it.
I think so. That's one way. So, yeah, so we're back to do more improvised stories for you guys. For those who may be here for the first time or for those who haven't been here in a while, what we do here is we take suggestions from the internet, be it, randomly generated story titles, or as Lynn will show us here, articles with strange headlines, and we will create the stories behind those things. So Lynn, what do you got for us today from the subreddit Not the Onion?
Parish council apologizes for offense after minibus anus sign.
Oh, wait, I think I heard of this, where it's like, where when the doors are closed it says one thing, but when they open it, the sign, it looks like it says anus. Ha, that's funny. Yeah, Grand Tour does that a lot, where they'll make the decals on the cars really weird, so that when they open doors, it says like butt or penis or something.
People keep uploading Hamilton to Pornhub.
Oh, I've heard about this. I haven't watched it myself, but I've heard of the numerous attempts to upload it onto Pornhub. And they keep categorizing it under like vintage or something. I keep forgetting what they categorize it under, but I was reading an article about it and they mentioned it's under like a very specific category. And they're always tagging it safe for work, as in somebody would still be going on Pornhub at work.
I'm sure there's people who do.
I'd like to know who, because I want to know how they get through their company's IT systems without getting caught.
Some companies don't have
dedicated IT people that watch that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
TSA agents are apparently still confused as to whether the District of Columbia is in the United States.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
Wow.
I mean, DC.
Guess they still didn't take their geography classes.
Guess not.
Okay, so we've got the minibus anus sign.
Minibus anus.
We've got the Hamilton.
Hamilton on Pornhub.
Uh-huh.
Or TSA agents not understanding where the District of Columbia is.
Yes. What do you like?
Out of those, I like I like Hamilton getting uploaded to Pornhub. I just feel like there's not much to do with it.
Yeah, I mean that would be a pretty quick story. Hey, there's a dude that uploaded this to Pornhub.
Yeah. And I like the TSA agent one.
Yeah, I'm with the TSA agent one. So let us tell the story of the TSA agents who do not know their geography. So back when the TSA first started, the TSA was a very small organization. I mean, granted, it was the Transportation Safety Administration for the entire country, but it wasn't. I mean, with the advent of big commercial airlines not being a huge thing yet, they didn't really have a lot of geographical coverage. So it was there were a few places that a lot of people traveled to, so that was what the main focus was. So in their initial training for their agents at airports, when bigger airports first started coming into play, they really only had to focus on, the few key places, which were like Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Miami, all those places where there was a lot of travel. And especially with government travel, that was all kind of privately figured out. So anybody coming out of DC, that was all figured out by other agencies, so like the Secret Service or things like that. So when it came to when like Dulles Airport in Virginia was built, which is just outside of DC, there was a bit of confusion with the TSA agents because they were servicing the DC metro area, but they were unaware of what Washington, D.C. was. They know like that the president and everybody in the government is in D.C., but they were confused as to how anybody got there.
They heard stories of people traveling by horse. They heard people who it was kind of like a platform in 9 3/4 way.
Oh, okay.
Like they would see a wall and run through it, and there they were kind of situation. For a while, there was a guy who was transporting people to DC, but he would blindfold them before transporting them.
Oh.
As if to be like, shh, you can't know what's going on over here. We got our own shit.
It's a very hush-hush kind of thing.
Very hush-hush. And I mean, like, that area in general is kind of, like, expensive to live in. You know what I mean? So a lot of people were like, this is weird. This is something we're not used to. I mean, like, yeah, sure, it's expensive in Philly, but what the fuck? It's expensive in D.C. So there were a lot of secretive ways. And one day, the head of TSA, Tammy, the TSA head.
Tammy Stevens Anderson.
Tammy Stevens.
It was the TSA was named after her.
After her. She just didn't tell anyone.
No.
Tammy Stevens Anderson kind of just went, fuck it. I don't know how people are getting there. I don't know how people are getting out of there. I don't know how it's sustainable. I don't get it. We took a detour and flew over where DC is supposed to be, and it's just a big old cloud. We don't see anything underneath it.
We just see the top of the White House poking out when we fly over it.
And that's it. And no one can live in a top of a house.
Nope.
And she was like, all right, well, that's it. It doesn't exist. And people were like, Tammy, but it does. Like, our president lives there. We know people who, like, actually live in that area. And she goes, yeah, well, they don't, they live in nowhere. It doesn't exist. Like, people didn't really agree with Tammy, but it was like, she was the head. They couldn't really fight her. She was the boss. So that's how DC kind of got the rap of, being nowhere.
Yeah. TSA actually put in the regulations that it forbade any travel in or out of DC. If you went to DC, you were not allowed to come back on a commercial airline that you had to get TSA screened for. You had to, find your way out by like getting in a car and driving back, or getting a horse, off the side of the road in DC. Which again, that's not really what
they're really big on horses. We don't know why.
Yeah, they were really big on like horse travel because they didn't understand that DC was actually a metropolitan area. So it was one of those two ways. And if you were coming in from DC, you were screened like crazy. They would take you. They would strip you completely down. They would do multiple cavity searches to make sure you didn't bring in anything weird.
Yep.
Because
none of that DC shit.
Yeah, none of that DC stuff. None of that DC clothing. None of that DC, air.
In fact, even when you did get checked, they wouldn't, and you were from DC, they wouldn't let you put on your actual clothing. They would give you a TSA like jumpsuit. And that was what you had to wear. They had to burn your clothes because obviously it's like DC clothes are kind of demonic, so we don't want that shit going on there.
It's kind of like a Monsters Inc. scenario when like that one guy comes back from the bedroom and he's got the sock on his hazmat suit.
Yeah.
And they basically have to just burn the suit because it's contaminated. It's completely contaminated.
Contaminated.
Yeah. So for years the TSA operated in that way where coming in or out, it was a nightmare for anybody trying to travel there. Until one day, Tammy Stevens Anderson decided to resign from her post as head of the TSA, and then a new president, a new leader of the TSA came aboard. His name was Thomas Sufjan Allen. He was you'll notice the theme with anybody that leads a TSA is that their initials have to be TSA.
It's a requirement.
It is a requirement for the job of head of the TSA. So Thomas Sufjan Allen took over the post, and one of his first actions was to immediately begin an investigation into the mystical and mythical town known as Washington, D.C. Actually, I should say province or district, I guess. However we categorize it. It's technically a state. No, I don't know. That's for a geography major.
I was gonna ask Google, but I don't even know how to word it. So fuck it. I don't even.
if you majored in geography in college, which I don't know why you would, leave a comment.
Holy shit! Putting them on blast.
No, I'm asking.
I don't know why you major in geography in college.
Well, I'm just.
Jesus. Hey, I think more of you than that. You're great. Good for you for getting that degree. I'm sure it was a lot of hard work. You're wonderful. Don't listen to him.
Anyway, I'm sorry to any geography majors.
As you should.
I am sorry. Where was I?
I don't know. Offending people who go to college, Evan. That's where you were.
Gosh. Okay. Oh, I remember now. So he enlisted the help of his best TSA agents to go out into the field and investigate Washington, D.C. Figure out what's going on there, what they got going on there. I mean, people only know so much from television and radio at that time.
Yeah.
Remember, this was the 1960s. They were blissfully unaware of what was going on in Washington, D.C. So he sent his crack team of TSA agents to D.C. to investigate, and basically all they had to do was just. Unfortunately, he made them all wear hazmat suits because still that was, as part of the previous administration, that was a written rule that if you traveled into D.C., you had to wear like a hazmat suit if you were part of that organization. So they all traveled in their hazmat suits and they carried flamethrowers too for some reason, because if they came into contact with anything that could possibly kill them, they wanted to be able to kill it so it wouldn't come back.
Oh yeah, and of course everything is afraid of fire. So, the crack team goes into DC, and, like, the locals are scared, right? Like, they just see these people roll up on a horse and buggy, which, hasn't been a thing for years, and they're in hazmat suits with, like, actual flamethrowers, and they're kind of, like, standoffish, too. Like, a couple people approach them and was like, hey, what are you doing? Like, is everything okay in this area? Why are you dressed like that? And they'd be like, back off, demon, and they, like, point the flamethrower at them, and people were like, oh, okay, well, that's illegal. And they go, no, it's not. We're the TSA. We make things illegal. And walk away. And so, like, the locals were, like, not big fans of these guys. They were just kind of doing what they wanted and overstayed their welcome. They were there for, like, a month. And it was like, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And to that team's dismay, a lot of DC was just normal.
Yeah.
Wasn't different than any other city in America, It was just a place, they saw the White House and even like the security team at the White House was like, what the fuck is going on over here?
Yeah, Pennsylvania Avenue was very confused as to what the hell was going on in D.C. at that time. They, of course, at that point, the TSA wasn't under... Technically, it was sort of a government organization, but it wasn't like fully. Sort of. It wasn't fully. People weren't watching it with a very close eye at that point. It was a new organization. They were just trying to figure everything out, so they weren't really focused. So at that point, the president had to step in at one point and say, what the hell are we doing here? Why are we just letting these guys in hazmat suits and flamethrowers run around DC terrorizing people for no reason whatsoever? How did they not understand that this is an actual place that people travel to or people live?
Right. So the president decided that the only way that he could solve this was just by inviting these weirdos to dinner one night and showing them DC in a sense. So they all show up in their hazmat suits, and the president and the first lady, they welcome them in. I don't even know who'd be president at this time. I'm too tired to figure that out.
We're just going to say president and first lady.
What year is this?
And it's the 60s, so it could be a number of people. So we'll just say president and first lady.
Fuck that.
Because we don't want to get chastised for saying the wrong president at the wrong time. So So yeah, the president and the first lady invited these guys out to dinner, in the hazmat suits and all. But when they arrived at the local restaurant in D.C., the restaurant had a strict dress code, and hazmat suits were not in the dress code.
Mm-hmm.
So these four men, unfortunately, had to get out of their hazmat suits and enjoy dinner in white T-shirts and their underwear in a very fancy Washington D.C. restaurant because they didn't pack any of their clothes. They figured they were going to stay in hazmat suits the entire time.
It was really interesting too because I was shocked to hear that that restaurant even let them still eat there in their underwear. But
right,
you know, the president was there. Who were they going to defy?
Exactly. Yeah. But so they were having dinner. Everything was fine. But towards the end of the meal, the president made it a point to explain to these gentlemen the importance of what Washington D.C. does for the country, and how much actually goes on here. Congress is here, the White House is here, all of these amazing tourist attractions, the National Mall and all these things are here. But the one thing he wanted to impart on them was the importance of geography. And at the end of the meal, he gave each one of the men sitting at that table an atlas. So that
an atlas.
He gave each one of them an atlas. And he told them, by executive order of the President of the United States, I command each one of you to read this atlas in the next 24 hours, and you will be tested multiple times to ensure that you now know that the District of Columbia is a part of the United States and always will be.
And I mean, who were they to defy the President of the United States?
It would have been treason if they did.
Absolutely. So they all did study and read, and a lot of them still weren't convinced, but okay, whatever, we'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
So they read it in the next 24 hours, then they went for their test. Only 3 passed. There was one that refused to believe it, and since he refused to take the test, he went to jail for treason.
Yep.
And we haven't seen him.
Yeah.
Ever since. Still probably
1967, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been in jail for that whole time.
Yep. So with that, the others were too scared to do anything. They were still unconvinced about DC, but they also wanted to see their families.
Mm-hmm.
So they just took the test and passed. And the next conversation that they had with the president was, of course, putting in an airport. Mm-hmm. With the president being so important, it was annoying for him to drive all the way to New York or other cities to get into an airplane. It was too much work. It was a lot of hassle. It was dangerous. Mm-hmm. They needed their own airport, and especially the president needed his own, runway. Yeah,
he needed his own way to get around from whenever he needed to get out of D.C. Mm-hmm. So that was when Air Force One was invented as well. Yes. At the same time that the TSA learned that Washington, D.C. was a part of the United States, Air Force One was created for the president.
Yes. So with this, the TSA group, the 3 that are left, they go back. They explain everything to
Thomas Sufjan Allen.
Okay, Thomas Sufjan Allen.
Yep.
And they tell Thomas Sufjan Allen, I don't know how to say his name, we're still not very convinced over this. And he goes, neither am I. Just give them an airport, and we're still going to put it in our rules that DC is not part of the U.S. So that's what they did. And in 2017, 2018, that debate is still being had.
It's still raging on in the halls of Dulles Airport. Well, that was an interesting story. Kind of went weird places.
Yep.
You can tell we're a little rusty.
You could tell one of us is not awake.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. That's what happens when it's the end of 2017 and the beginning of a new year. You want to start fresh, but you're ending tiredly.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah.
Out like a lamb, in like a lion.
Out like a lamb, just go back to bed.
Well, I think now's a good time to take a break.
I need caffeine.
You need caffeine. So Lynn's going to go get some caffeine. We'll be back after the break with another story right here on Read Between. See you in a few. Hey, Hey guys, Evan here. Just wanted to take a few minutes here to remind you about our social media outlets and to give you a little update on where we see the show going in 2018. So for those of you that may have not checked this out before, we're on plenty of social media outlets, and we're trying to build our social media presence with the show. So you can follow us on Twitter using the handle @readbetweencast. That's usually the platform we're most active on right now, and we'll be continuing to be active on that platform in the future. You can also find us on Facebook. If you go to www.facebook.com/readbetweencast, you'll be able to find our page there. Drop us a like, stay followed there for more information. We're going to try to use that page a little more often to do some polls and to have some more content there in the future for upcoming episodes. Also, we have a Gmail account, which is readbetweencast@gmail.com. Feel free to use that Gmail account to send us feedback, send us any questions, any comments you have. And also, if you have any ideas for stories that you want to hear on the show, and basic premises, story titles, things like that, send them to the Gmail account, and we'll definitely we'll keep them in mind for future episodes. And if your story gets used, we'll be sure to use your name as a character in the story, or we'll be sure to work in something relating to you when we use your suggestion on the show. One of the cool things that I'm looking forward to this year for 2018 is I want to bring in some of my comedian friends from the Lehigh Valley area here in Pennsylvania to be guest storytellers with us here on the show. So stay tuned to our social media in the next few weeks. I'm gonna try to get in touch with some friends and see if they'd be interested in sitting in on the podcast over the next few weeks and getting some fresh faces, some fresh voices on the show here to kind of give us some new takes on some interesting story ideas that we may hear. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned to the social media outlets for that. And keep listening towards the end of the show, where Lynn and I will go over our personal social media accounts, and we'll go through all that stuff then. We'll be back on a weekly release schedule now, starting on this Monday, January 1st. And we'll be releasing every Monday at 9 a.m. So stay tuned to SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube for the show. If you're looking on YouTube, just search Read Between Podcast, and also same thing on SoundCloud, just search Read Between Podcast, and you can find us there. If you're listening on iTunes, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, leave a rating, let us know how we're doing. That stuff really helps us and helps the show get some notoriety. So if you have any other questions, leave it on the Twitter, the Facebook, the Gmail. We'll be sure to answer any questions. And without further ado, let's get back to the show and let's tell another story. All right, and we are back from break.
Yeah.
First break of 2018. So Lynn, what is your New Year's resolution for 2018?
Oh my God. Well, my biggest New Year's resolution is to write more.
Okay.
For those who don't know, I write about video games.
Like every other person on the internet?
Like every other person on the internet, exactly. But I want to write more. I want to get back into that and get my mind jogging again.
Nice.
And then and this is a big resolution, man. Like, this is me setting the bar. Mm-hmm. I'm going to try and go to all my doctors and be like, how am I doing? How's this?
Yeah.
And it started with the dentist.
Mm-hmm.
I owe the dentist now a lot of money because my teeth are not doing well, but I'm making progress.
You're making moves.
And that's my New Year's resolution. What's yours? Don't use mine.
I think one of my biggest ones is, of course, the one that everybody has, which is lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
I had a good year in 2017 in the beginning half where I lost like 30 pounds. I lost like 35 pounds in like 3 months. And that was really good. But then I feel like I haven't stepped on the scale in a while, and I feel like I gained a lot of it back. Mm-hmm. So I need to get back in gear and get my ass back in shape again.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because I lost a couple pounds too earlier this year. And people were like, oh my God, you look so great. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a lot of people have been lying to me as of late because I'm still getting the, oh my God, you look so great. That's awesome. And I'm like, yeah, it's been like a year. I have not looked good in like a year.
Yeah. So that's my big one. And also I think just continuing to do comedy and continuing to, broaden my horizons with that. Maybe do some, as dumb as it sounds, I want to do some comedy writing this year. I want to work on that. Because I'm not much of a writer, but I want to kind of move into that space a little bit and kind of test my mettle and see with that, and do some sketch comedy as well. I kind of did a little bit of that last year, but kind of start moving into that a little more.
Okay.
That would be cool. So those are kind of my 2 big resolutions for 2018.
Those are good resolutions.
Yeah.
They're not mine, so.
So yeah, but
yeah.
So I guess to continue the trend of 2018, this is our first second half of Read Between in 2018, where
Oh, that rhymed. Read between
2018. Hey, that's gonna be a good year for this podcast.
Watch, it's not gonna be a good year for this podcast. It's gonna be like the worst year.
Oh, come on. It's the first episode of the new year. We're starting off on a good foot.
Look, I'm just saying.
It's the first episode back from hiatus.
Being a little pessimistic, and I think we need that.
No, we're small. It's good. It can only go up from here.
We are small children.
So on the second half of these Read Between episodes, I like to go to a website called fantasynamegenerators.com, and I use their book title generator to generate random names of stories, and we'll pick a few and we'll decide which one of these is the best, and that we'll tell the story of. So Lynn, if you want to give me a genre to spin on.
I'm so sorry. Could you give me the list of genres again?
Sure. It is adventure, children, drama, fantasy, horror, humor, mystery, nonfiction, romance, or sci-fi.
Fantasy.
All right. 1, 2, 3. What's the story?
Okay, Blue's Clues.
Okay. This one is mermaids and mermen. Mermaids and mermen.
All right.
That's the first one. What's the next genre?
Let's do mystery.
All right. 1, 2, 3. What's the start? Okay.
We're gonna get fucking sued because you can't come up with a new jingle that is not Blue's Clues. This is not the year for Read Between.
Come at me, Nickelodeon.
No, do not.
Viacom, you don't know my number.
They can find out.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Baker of the Sun.
Oh.
Ooh.
That's a big task.
That's an interesting one. All right, and the last category.
Sci-fi.
All right. 1, 2, 3. What do we see?
Shut up. He wants us to be the year for the podcast. Here he is fucking dropping a jingle that has been taken for like 20 years.
Okay. Here we go. Pilots and robots.
We got 2 of the ands. We got the mermaids and mermen.
Pilots and robots and Baker of the Sun.
Okay. I really like the Baker of the Sun.
Baker of the Sun?
That is so interesting.
Okay.
All right.
So the first randomly generated story of 2018 is Baker of the Sun. Okay, so this story starts out in the mythical village of Solaria. Solaria, yes.
Okay.
Solaria is a very remote village. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of people. Very primitive village, actually. Basic, huts that its inhabitants were able to build out of, basic materials, stone, rock, grass, very simple things. These denizens of Solaria are not very technologically adept. They're pretty primitive, as we mentioned.
Yeah.
But the one thing they do actually enjoy is cooking.
Cooking and baking.
Yes.
Yes. It's very common for, new restaurants to pop up, family restaurants. It's very common, for children to be cooking and baking at a young age and working in their parents' shops. Mm-hmm. So with that said, there were a lot of awesome creations, chefs who were able to create, your favorite meal and then replicate it many, many years later. Mm-hmm. You could go to them and say, oh, I remember I had a meal at my grandmom's house. I don't remember what it was, but it was like this chicken thing, and they could recreate it just with a few short descriptions of what it was. Mm-hmm. Bakers could create anything. They could, sculpt anything, make whatever you needed in any flavor you wanted. Mm-hmm. And it was just very inventive that way. Yeah. And there was one person in particular, Ray, who stood out from the rest. Ray had big ideas, and he wanted to try something a little crazy. Because the thing about Solaria is that not a lot of light existed there.
Yeah, it was situated in this valley, surrounded by large mountains. So of course the mountains were so large that the sun would block out pretty much all of the light that would come in around the valley. So Solaria, for ironically enough, with its sunny disposition of a name, it did not get much sun. It was a very dark town.
It did not.
So yeah, Ray had a vision for what he wanted to do, for how he wanted to leave his legacy in Solaria, and it involved lots of flour, lots of dough, and a little bit of luck. A little bit of luck in this within the valley.
Yeah. So he didn't tell anybody what he was doing, but one day he closed up shop. He put a sign out the door, and it said opening TBD. He didn't tell anyone when he was opening back up. He didn't tell anyone where he was going, what he was doing. He just started to sculpt and bake and do what he knew. And it included just making the biggest cake he has ever made, with a recipe that he has never shared with anybody. And he made a vanilla bourbon flavored spherical cake. And he covered it in bourbon. And with that, he now needed to find a way up in the stars.
So with that, he packed up his cake. He made sure it was packed up nice and tight and neatly, threw it on his back, and began the ascent up the valley and into the mountaintops.
Everyone knew that the mountaintops, there was an old folk legend that the mountaintops were so high that they would pierce the atmosphere, and all you had to do was jump a little bit, and you'd be floating in space.
Yeah, the previous settlers of Solaria, those who had tried to expand the valley into the mountaintops and to try to give the people more places to live and to see, as they were exploring these mountains to see if there was any way to inhabit them, most of them never came back. Most of these intrepid explorers, would go up and would not be seen for weeks and months until you hear the stories of the next batch of explorers finding them on their travels. So it was not a good situation for Ray to put himself in, but he knew for himself and for the rest of Solaria, he needed to do this. This needed to be the way to go.
Because after all, Solaria's winters were just too brutal, and the inhabitants of Solaria, they were just a few now, because the weather and the climate was so harsh that it was hard to survive.
Yeah, the older generations were dying off at a much faster rate because they couldn't survive. Pneumonia was very, very prevalent.
And it didn't do well for the little ones either.
No.
So they really needed to fix this, and so Ray was set. He knew what he needed to do, and he climbed those mountains for weeks. Yeah, it was a trudge at first. With the energy that he had from his initial climb, he made it up about a third of the way up the mountain in a week, which was record time for anybody that was going exploring. And people that were in the valley could see his ascent as he started to make his way up, and he was getting lots of love and support from the people of Solaria, but his energy started to fade, and with that, his will to continue started to fade after a while. And by the third or fourth week, he was gasping for breath. He was completely spent. Yeah, I mean, after all, he was carrying the biggest cake. People from Solaria could see the cake in the mountains. It was so big.
I mean, this cake had to be at least 5 feet in diameter, at least.
Oh, much more than that.
Yeah.
Much more than 5 feet. I would even say a couple 100 feet in diameter. He really worked on this, and he didn't ask for any help. And there was just one day while Ray was climbing up, he was so close to the top of the mountain, and he just fell over, gasping for breath. And he was losing fate. And from up there, he looked down to the town of Solaria and realized that it was so dark he couldn't see it. And with that, he took in a big gasp of air and started running back up the mountain until he was at the very, very top. He gathered as much cake as he could and lifted it in the air and leaped, and he started floating.
And when he started floating, a large beam of light enveloped him. It warmed him to the point where it warmed him to a level that he had never felt before. He lived in Solaria all his life. He never felt warmth of that level. The warmest it got was just above freezing in Solaria. He had felt an immeasurable warmth for the first time in his life, and it was indescribable. He couldn't find the words to express how he felt about it. And as he was floating, a voice could be heard, a disembodied voice, telling Ray, "You have completed your journey. Your task is done. The people will now be saved." And with this, the mountains around him begin to crumble. They begin to fall. And as these mountains fall, light begins to shine in on the valley of Solaria, for the first time in centuries.
But the light wasn't coming from any nearby sun. In fact, the sun was that cake, that giant cake. And Ray got so warm that when he reached out to touch his cake, it set ablaze. And he gave it a great push until it shot into the space and found its own spot to orbit.
Yes. And to this day, it still orbits just above the valley of Solaria, providing warmth and comfort and sunlight
and hope
to all of its inhabitants.
Yeah, but what about Ray? Ray was still floating in space.
Ray was still floating, but Ray, for his efforts, Ray was rewarded with the now famous powers of a sun god. I mean, it's very fitting with a name like Ray that you become a sun god. But yeah, he became the sun god to watch over Solaria and to be its protector, be its keeper,
to make sure it always had sunlight and warmth.
Yes.
The end.
The end.
That was a really short story.
That was a short story, but I like it because it had a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Because it was a story.
It was a story.
Well, I think we're all storied out for today. And
yeah.
The fireworks are starting to go off, so I think we don't really have time to tell another story.
Yeah, I think we're out of time today, unless you want to listen to 15 minutes of just of M80s going off in the background. Oh boy.
Well, how about we shamelessly plug ourselves?
Sure, let's do that. The first shameless plugs of 2018.
Hell yeah. You want to go first?
Sure. So if you want to follow me, Evan, on Twitter, my Twitter handle is E_Williamson93. Basically, all I've been tweeting about lately is Black Mirror, because we started watching that, and I am freaking out over how good it is. So follow me there to find out my thoughts on Black Mirror, and to also hear me tweet to my friends about how good Black Mirror is, and also any other random crap I might tweet about.
That should be your resolution for the new year.
To watch all of Black Mirror?
No, to tweet more.
To tweet more. Okay, we'll add that as a third one. That's a third tweet. That's a third resolution.
Work on your social media coverage.
Yes. Also, if you're ever in the Lehigh Valley area of Pennsylvania, I perform with an improv comedy team called Family Laundry at the Improv Comedy Power Hour every second and fourth Saturdays. You can check out steelstacks.org/comedy for more information. Also, in January, I've got a couple special shows, one of which being the Best of Fake News, which is an improv comedy show based all around conspiracy theory websites. Which that show will be taking place Thursday, January 11th at Steel Stacks in Bethlehem, PA at 8 p.m. Also, at the end of January, January 26th and 27th, will be the third or fourth annual. I'm losing track. I think it's the fourth.
I think it's the fourth annual.
Fourth annual Steel Stacks Improv Comedy Festival. It's 2 days, over 40 hours or so of improv comedy from all over the country. And I'll be performing in 4 sets over the 2 days. So for more information on that, go to steelstacks.org/improv, and you'll get to find out a whole bunch more information about the festival there.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, I probably should know this because we've gone to like 2 of the 3.
Mm-hmm.
This will be our 3rd going to it, but the tickets aren't really expensive.
No, you can get a weekend pass for I think like $40.
Yeah,
but it gets you all the shows.
It gets everything.
The festival this year will be headlined by New York improv teams North Coast and the Law Firm. Both really, really awesome teams out of New York City. So if you're in the area, come check it out. It's a lot of fun.
Yes.
All right, enough of my plugging. Your turn.
My turn. You can find me on Twitter at Annelynn, AYNNELNN. Anything I do on the internet, I post there normally. I also stream on Twitch. Wow, I am just like everybody else on the internet.
You really are.
Twitch.tv/Annelynn, AYNNELNN. I stream on Mondays and Fridays, and sometimes the weekend. And that's it for me. And that's like the 2 things.
Yeah. So I know we mentioned this during the break, but if you want to check us out on social media, you can follow the show on Twitter at readbetweencast. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/readbetweencast. You can find the show on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. Just search Read Between Podcast. You'll find us there. We did realize recently that we don't have much of a presence for your Android people other than SoundCloud. So we're going to work to be getting our show on Google Play Music and maybe even Stitcher in the near future.
Whatever we can. I don't know like how you do it on Google Play, but
yeah, we'll have to look up the submission guidelines for that. But we'll keep you posted. We'll let you know when we get on some more services. And yeah, if you have any comments, suggestions, any ideas for stories, feel free to send them to our Gmail account, which is readbetweencast@gmail.com. And like we said in the break, if you submit a story idea or something like that, we'll credit you by using your name in the story somehow.
Yeah, we'll make you a character or something.
Yeah, a little incentive to get you to send stuff in.
Do our shit.
Do our jobs for us.
Do our jobs for us, please.
Please record this podcast and put it up on the internet.
No, don't.
Nah.
Because this was our idea. God damn it.
Yeah.
This was like months in the making.
Yeah, we kind of put a lot of time and effort into this, so we should probably continue doing it. So.
But help us come up with shit.
Yeah. We always like to hear from you guys.
Yeah. Let us know how we're doing.
Yeah. We know we have a small following at this point, but tell your friends about the show. Let them know we got going on here. It's a fun thing. We'd like to grow in 2018, see where we can go with this show. So So make sure you spread the word. Read Between 2018. Read Between 2018.
I'm gonna cover his mouth now for you guys. Have a happy new year.
Yes.
And we will talk to you guys next week.
Yes. See you guys next week. Enjoy the first week of 2018. See ya.
Bye.